November 1944. The Hurtgen Forest, Germany. The trees don't move. The fog doesn't lift. The mud swallows boots whole. A German officer steps over an American body. He pauses. He bends down. He picks up the dead soldier's weapon. He laughs. It is short, dismissive. The kind of laugh that carries contempt across a language barrier without needing translation. He holds it up to his men. They laugh too. It looks like a piece of plumbing. A length of pipe. A stamp press reject. Something a factory worker built on his lunch break from scrap left on the floor. There is no elegance to it. No craft. No heritage. No artistry. The Germans had been building weapons since before America had states. They had the MP-40, precision-milled, balanced, ergonomic. A weapon forged with the same obsession they put into their watches and their engines. Their weapons were statements of national character. And this thing the Americans were carrying? It was a joke. They called it the black pistol, the tin pistol, a tin can, a trash bin with a trigger. The official American designation was the M3 submachine gun. But history would remember it by its nickname, the grease gun. It fired 45 ACP rounds. It weighed less than 8 pounds loaded. It had a cyclic rate, so slow, roughly 450 rounds per minute, that trained German soldiers could hear each individual shot. Pop, pop, pop. Like someone knocking on a door. Compared to the German MP-40's mechanical scream, the grease gun sounded embarrassing. It cost $15 to manufacture. $15. 1 unit. Mass-produced in automobile stamping plants by workers who had never touched a weapon in their lives 3 months before. No machining, no hand-fitting, no craftsmanship at all. The Germans understood precision engineering as a form of superiority. A perfect weapon was proof of a superior civilization. And here were the Americans, the people who made chewing gum and Hollywood movies, handing their soldiers what amounted to a pipe with a magazine. They were right to laugh. For a while. September 1944. France. General George S. Patton's Third Army. Patton doesn't walk into rooms. He arrives in them. He is the most controversial American general of World War II, and he knows it. He courts it. His pearl-handled revolvers are not practical. They are theater. He understands that war is partly psychological, and that a general, who looks like a god of war, frightens the enemy before a single bullet leaves a barrel. He is also a student of logistics in a way that his public persona deliberately obscures. Patton's Third Army is moving faster than any army in the history of mechanized warfare. From the breakout at Avranches in August 1944, his columns are covering distances that leave German high command, checking their maps 3 times to make sure the numbers are real. In 3 weeks, he covers ground that First World War armies fought over for 3 years. Speed is his weapon. Speed above everything. And speed creates a very specific problem. When you move fast, you carry light. When you carry light, your weapons must be simple. When your weapons are simple, they must function in mud, in water, in sand, when dropped from a truck, when dragged through a ditch, when operated by a 19-year-old who has been awake for 40 hours and whose hands are shaking. The Thompson submachine gun, the Tommy gun, was everything the American soldier should have loved. It was heavy. It was accurate. It was beautiful in the way Chicago gangsters had made it famous. It was also a nightmare to manufacture at the scale Patton's army needed. The M3 grease gun was not beautiful, but it could be manufactured in hours. It could be dropped in a swamp and fired the next day. A soldier could field strip it with one hand in the dark. The magazine could be used as a handle when the actual handle broke. And at close range, the range where urban combat and bunker clearing happens, it was lethal. Imagine you are in a tanker. Your Sherman is burning. You have 10 seconds to get out. You are not grabbing a rifle. You are not attaching a bayonet. You grab the short, ugly, stamped metal tube hanging on the inside wall and you run. That is the grease gun's genius. It was not designed to win a firefight in an open field at 300 yards. It was designed to survive the moment after everything else has gone wrong. And in November 1944, everything was about to go very, very wrong. Washington, D.C. 1942. The War Department. The decision to build the M3 was not made by soldiers. It was made by accountants. This is the part of the story that makes people uncomfortable. The U.S. military looked at Britain's Sten gun, a 2-pound stamped submachine gun the British were producing in the hundreds of thousands, and made a cold calculation. Not an emotional one, not a patriotic one, a mathematical one. The calculation was this: if the war is going to be won in Europe, it will require millions of soldiers. Millions of soldiers require millions of weapons. Millions of weapons require factories, and factories have limits. Every Thompson produced was a tank part not produced. Every hand-fitted weapon was 10 stamped weapons not made. The genius and the moral weight of American industrial warfare is this: you can replace a $15 weapon. You cannot replace the soldier holding it. So the decision was made: build cheap, build fast, build millions. But the decision created a fracture inside the American military that never fully healed. Officers who had trained their men on the Thompson were furious. NCOs who understood close-quarters combat looked at the M3's 450 RPM fire rate and felt their confidence drain. Letters were written, complaints were filed. There is documented evidence that some unit commanders refused initial shipments of the M3 and demanded Thompsons instead. They were overruled. And here is the moral gray area. The men who made that decision, the accountants, the logisticians, the industrial planners, were asking American soldiers to go into combat with a weapon that felt inferior, that looked inferior. That the enemy laughed at. Were they wrong to do it? The soldier holding the $15 pipe doesn't care about the balance sheet, but the general who needs to arm 300,000 men in 6 weeks does. Both perspectives are correct. Both carry weight. And the men who went into the Hurtgen forest, into the Siegfried line, into the bunkers of the German border, they carried both the weapon and the doubt simultaneously. They didn't get to choose their philosophy. They got the weapon they were given, and they went in anyway. December 1944. The Battle of the Bulge. Hitler's gamble. The last offensive. The desperate lunge through the Ardennes that was supposed to split the Allied line and force a negotiated peace. For 3 days it almost works. American units are surrounded, cut off, outnumbered. The temperature drops below zero. Weapons jam. The M1 Garand, the pride of American infantry, begins to fail in the ice. Rifles seize. Bolts freeze. Lubricants designed for temperate European combat turn to paste in Arctic Belgian cold. The grease gun does not care. This is the secret the Germans never calculated. The M3's simplicity, the thing that made it look like a toy, that made German officers laugh, that made American NCOs file complaints, was a specific engineering decision that had a specific military consequence in a specific type of cold. Fewer moving parts, fewer tolerances, fewer surfaces for lubricant to freeze between. In the forests of the Ardennes, in the foxholes around Bastogne, American soldiers are firing weapons that work, while soldiers with more beautiful, more precise, more superior weapons are clearing ice from their actions with the heat of their bare hands. Now run the numbers differently. The Thompson cost $209 to produce in 1942. The M3 cost $15. For every Thompson produced, you could make 13 M3s, 13 soldiers armed instead of 1, 13 points of fire instead of 1. And in the Hurtgen forest, where the fighting happens at distances measured in yards, not hundreds of yards, the M3's slow cyclic rate reveals something else the critics missed. At close range, controlled fire is deadlier than spray. Pop, pop, pop. Each round placed, each trigger pull deliberate. In a trench, in a bunker corridor, in the ground floor of a shattered farmhouse, the soldier who fires controlled beats, the soldier who empties his magazine into a wall. The Germans learned this. Not in briefings, not in after-action reports. In the last seconds of their lives, in rooms that smelled of cordite and wet concrete, when an American soldier came through a door with a pipe gun and put 3 rounds into a chest before the echo of the first shot stopped bouncing off the stone, the laughter stopped in places like that. There is another secret that military historians discuss rarely. The M3A1, the 1000, 944 updated version removed the manual safety entirely. Entirely. The engineers calculated that the firing pin geometry and bolt weight made accidental discharge essentially impossible in standard use, and that the time cost of disengaging a safety in close combat was a measurable contributor to soldier deaths. They removed the safety to save lives. Think about that decision. Think about the men who made it. Think about what it says about the nature of the war they were fighting, that the safest thing they could do was remove the safety. By the end of the war, over 700,000 M3 and M3A1 grease guns had been produced. The weapons served American forces in Korea. In Vietnam, Special Forces units carried updated versions into operations in the 1990s. It became the standard weapon of American tank crews and was only officially retired from that role in 1994, 50 years after the Germans laughed at it in the Hurtgen Forest. Fort Benning, Georgia. 1952. A young infantry officer is reviewing weapons for a training class. He holds the grease gun. He turns it over. He has read the after-action reports from the Bulge. He has read the accounts from the Hurtgen. He has spoken to men who used it. He sets it down. He writes one line in his field notes. Ugly works. That is the entire legacy of the M3 grease gun in 4 words. It is also a lesson that extends so far beyond a weapon that it becomes uncomfortable to sit with. We live in a world that rewards the beautiful, the elegant, the sophisticated. We are drawn to the polished, the expensive, the precisely engineered. We look at the thing made with care and craft, and we assign it virtue. We believe, at some primal level, that beautiful things deserve to win. The grease gun says otherwise. The grease gun says that the question is never, how does it look? The question is, does it work when everything else has failed? Patton understood this. Not because he was humble. Patton was the least humble man in any room he entered, but because he understood the difference between theater and function. His revolvers were theater. His army's weapons were function. He kept those categories rigidly separated. The German military could not. Their weapons were masterpieces. The MP-40, the MG-42. The St. G-44, the world's first true assault rifle, a weapon so advanced it influenced every infantry rifle designed in the following century. These were genuine achievements. Genuine genius. But they took time to build. They required skilled workers. They had tolerances that punished harsh conditions. They were, in the deepest sense, weapons designed for the war Germany planned to fight, not the war it ended up fighting. And America brought $15 pipes by the millions. There is a quote, its precise origin is disputed, but its truth is not that is sometimes attributed to Patton, sometimes to Eisenhower, sometimes lost to the collective voice of American military planning in the winter of 1944. Quantity has a quality, all its own. The Germans were building the perfect weapon. America was building enough weapons. And in the frozen forests of Belgium and Germany, in the bunker corridors of the Siegfried Line, in the rubble-choked streets of Aachen, enough won. Wars are not won by weapons. They are won by the decisions made about weapons before the first shot is ever fired. The question this story leaves behind is this. We all face moments where we have to choose between the elegant solution and the one that actually works. Between the thing we're proud to show and the thing that gets the job done in the cold and the dark when everything else has failed. If you were Patton's logistics commander in 1944, knowing your men would be embarrassed, knowing the enemy would laugh, knowing the weapon looked like scrap metal, would you have issued the grease gun anyway? Drop your answer below, because the answer says more about you than you might expect.